Before I get into how I made the prints, let me explain how the idea came about. Back in 2019, for the first COVID lockdown, we were allowed to walk in the park for only 1 hour a day. From my previous experience as working as a screen printer, I knew I could use real foliage to make the screens for the process of screen printing. I knew it was an interesting idea, but I didn't really understand how I could use it. I tried a few renditions using the technique. They were interesting but didn't really connect. Whilst on one of my hourly lockdown walks, I thought of using the foliage within a shape, maybe a window, almost like you're spying into an imaginary garden. After some research of some shapes and designs, I settled on a circle. It was nice and simple, and the shape reminded me of like a telescope or a spy hole looking into an imaginary world, full of foliage shapes that you recognise, but completely different colours. Every set of studies, I try and add a new element to develop the project. And in the last 2 sets of studies, I have started using flowers. At the beginning of this project, back in 2019, I found using flowers within the process difficult. In 2025, I was asked to be part of a flowers show at Saatchi Gallery, and had to lock down the method. Luckily, I managed to work it out, and this is only the second project I have ever used it in. In the last few years, bluebells have been appearing in my garden. Every year, a few more appear. So I decided to use these for 2 main reasons. One, if I was to go to a park and pick a bluebell, it's a big no-no. Secondly, I tried to expose a bluebell back in 2019, and I couldn't get it to work. So it's kind of a milestone of how much I've developed the idea. So I pick the bluebells from my garden and make 2 piles. One set I'll take straight to the studio and process some screens. The second pile I'll dry in these DIY flower presses I made. These flowers are for midway through the project, when I see space and areas which need to be printed on, and all the flowers in my garden are long dead. They're like a backup plan, and they always come in useful. So I prepared 10 screens for the project, all on a 90 mesh, and I clean the old imagery off, and then I coat the screens ready for exposing. To make sure all the circles are printed the same size, I double expose the screens. This involves working out the correct circle shape for the size paper I'm using, and exposing this circle on all of the screens in exactly the same place. And then recoating the screens. Now the only area the foliage will develop within is within the circle. Now for the fun bit. I have a rough plan of the angles and areas I want the bluebells to fill, and start with making 4 screens, which is a great start for the base layers. I want to fill the whole circle with the beautiful shapes of the foliage. I do prefer using fresh flowers because they fall where they fall. You have a lot less control over the process, which leads to a lot more organic patterns. I often damage the bluebells through this process, so what happens today happens, and you can't go back using the same flowers, so what happens today is what's going to get used. When power washing the screens, I put the settings to the lowest power and slowly blast the uncooked emulsion out. Each screen takes up to 30 minutes of slowly easing the shapes out. So this is the first time I've ever used an airbrush, so please feel free to give me any pointers in the comments. The first thing I need to set up is a jig, so I will stencil the circle in the same position on every piece of paper. This will make the next step of screen printing so much easier. After setting this up, I isolate the area as the spray can take over the whole room. I have a rough plan of the sunsets I want to paint. The main reason for the plan is so I don't repeat any colour ranges. I've used a gradient background in other studies and I feel it's worked well. I made these gradients both digitally and by screen printing. I wanted to hand create the background because it looks less polished and the different inks mix well with screen printing. I did consider using aerosol spray, but I don't like the powdery texture it leaves and it's not very nice to screen print on. I'm getting some overspray on the paper, which I love. This is an unexpected result and I really like it. It's like the image wants to burst out of the circle. Here's a little flick through of all the different backgrounds I have painted. They're all inspired by sunsets and sunrises. I actually quite like them a lot, and screen printing on them feels a little bit sad, but this is a really strong base to print on. And also, I've learnt how to use an airbrush, which is really exciting for future projects. To prepare the 4 screens, I have to fill out any holes created from the dust and take the screens up around the edges. The number of layers I'll probably print per piece will range from 6 to 10. So it's important that the first layers are super opaque. I almost want to block the background out, which seems a shame to be honest. I have 4 screens here to start off with. I allocate a colour to a screen and go through the whole pile, selecting the colour that I'd like to see on the background. It's amazing how printing the same colour on a different background can create a totally different vibe. I clean and then I repeat the process. This opaque green is a colour I've always stayed away from. In fact, my general rule for these studies is to stay away from any natural hues. But this toxic green is far from natural, so I thought I'd experiment to see the results. I think it's successful. So I now repeat the process with the second layer, going through the whole pile of prints, slowly allocating a different colour to a different screen. As I build up the layers, I build up depth within the spy hole. So remember, back at the beginning I dried some flowers out. I'm now going to make some screens using those flowers. Honestly, the flowers aren't that pretty and they've all gone a little bit brown, but they'll do the job for what I need them to do. In fact, only one is still blue. Before making the screens, I have a flick through the whole pile and make some sketches of which spaces I want filling, and then I start the process of making the screens. The one thing I love about bluebells is it's one of the first flowers to start blooming, the first signs of winter finishing. Winter can become a bleak time of year. If you work indoors, you rarely see the sunlight, and when the bluebell leaves start popping up, you know that winter's close to finishing, and spring, which is my favourite season, is close. I tend to split the printing in 2 halves. The first section printing the base layers, which are opaque solid layers, which block the colours out of the background. And then the second half, which is translucent colours, which lay all over the background and base, mixing the colour palette together so the image becomes one melting pot of colour. So in this chapter, I'll go through the process of how I finish 5 prints. Print 1. Once again, I'm going to use my toxic green to print with. My thinking is that there's a lot of pink and blues within this piece, and the green will really break it up. For the final layer, I want to use a translucent purple. I think this will work well, as when it goes over the pink and blues, the colour will be enhanced. But when it goes over the greens, the purple should become a black, which will add a nice coldness to the piece. I really like how the colour reads as purple, but because the colour is translucent, it allows the colours it sits on to come through, so there's lots of different shades of purple. For me, this piece is finished. Now let's get started on print 2. So I'm going to start off with a weak cyan, which I think will complement the existing colours. Honestly, that has worked better than I ever imagined. I'm actually buzzing about this, it's perfect. It's amazing how one weak cyan has instantly brought this whole piece together in just one hit. Print 3. So this is what the print looks like, with all the base layers on it, and I'm thinking a powerful pink will look great. I think this is actually disgusting, and at this point I'm thinking about binning the print because it's so ugly. So what I need to do is block out my mistake through bold opaque colours, starting with a pale blue. This is good, but I think I need to put a thick white on, which really will work into the image. So I'm starting to really like this image again. And I could leave it like this, but I'm thinking a translucent purple would work well on top. So I have to mix the purple to the correct weakness, so it mixes with the colours behind, but has a nice purple come through at the front. I've saved this piece from the bin. Honestly, these pieces end up being my favourite pieces. The ones I've worked for, solved problems with, and gone through a journey. The sadness of making the wrong colour choice, but then the joy of saving the issue, and making the piece beautiful. So after that drama, hopefully print 4 will go smoother. In total, I have made around 9 screens. So the main task is to choose a screen, which I haven't already used on the print, and covers an area which I'm happy to cover. This light yellow has created a great base to put an interesting translucent colour on. I'm thinking a bright orange, as it will complement the background colours I have airbrushed and tie the whole piece together. I'm really happy with this, but it's late now and time to go home. So when I come back into the studio, the first thing I like to do is look at the prints with fresh eyes. These 2 are definitely finished. So I have an idea for print 4. It's to tape off a small area and to print a flower in the foreground, as I think it will give the image more depth. I'm really hoping this works. Yeah, this is great. It gels well with the cyan flowers in the background and has finished off the print nicely. And now for the final print in this episode, print 5. So I've had this idea for a while. This print has a lot of white on it, so should work out well. I recently had to screen print an image using cyan, magenta and yellow, colours which are great for screen printing photographic images. as they can create a full spectrum of colours. I want to print magenta, cyan and yellow through different screens and see what happens. I think it will work well. Let's see. So I'm going to put this onto the It's Finished rack. So here I have shown you how to finish off 5 different pieces. I have been asked in the past, how do you know when a piece is finished? And the truth is a bit naff. It's a gut feeling. If I feel happy, I like it. And if I feel sad, it's often rubbish. I wish there was a science I could explain to you, but it's just a gut feeling. So now we are on to the final part of the project. By this point, I'm often over the project and looking to move onto my new exciting project that I have already conjured up. But I need to wait and finish this project. I tear the prints down, creating a torn edge around the print. I sign the prints and number each one individually. Because although these pieces are created via screen printing, there's only one of each piece, so it is individual. And then the final and the most boring job, taking the photos. It pains me to say it, but if the photos are rubbish, the piece often doesn't sell. If the photos are good, they look good on the website and are more likely to sell. But this part is boring and difficult, and it becomes a marathon of effort. Here is the final series of screen prints, which are made from using bluebells which have sprung up in my own garden. I love the sunset in the background, creating a sense of depth within the piece. Thanks for watching, and if you have the urge, why not try screen printing from flowers in the park and see what beautiful images you can come up with. All these prints are available to buy from the Jealous Gallery website. I'll put the description below. Thanks for watching.